Hello and welcome. This is Train Simulator World and we're looking at the very first DLC. It's called Great Western Express. It's a route expansion including some rolling stock. We'll be looking at that in a minute. And yeah, I mean there've already been some videos out there regarding this, but I tend to take a slightly different look at things. I am a so-called third-party developer, so my interest really lies in the 3D modeling and the route design, which is what I tend to do in the old Train Simulator platform. Right, so let's get started. The first thing I immediately noticed when I started off TSW for the very first time is the lighting. I find the lighting in the Unreal 4 engine absolutely incredible. It creates such a nice atmosphere and some really nice effects. And I think people really don't appreciate how important lighting really is, particularly for us 3D modelers. Let me show you something. What we see here is a 3D model I created some time ago, and I've run a render in 3ds Max. Now in this render I've actually told 3ds Max to ignore any kind of lighting. So the model is, well, just as is. Now in this picture here we have the exact same model, the exact same perspective, but this time I've told 3ds Max to render taking into account lighting and shadow. And you can see it just makes a huge difference. So I find that the Unreal 4 engine in TSW does an amazing job of creating all these nice effects that really give you immersion and makes it just all look really beautiful. So the trains included in the route, we've seen them all now. The first one was the HST high-speed train, which is a train designed for express passenger services. Then we saw the 166, which is designed for stopping passenger services for commuters. And here you just saw the class 66, which comes with some freight wagons. I believe there's two kinds. There's some container wagons, which we see here, and some hoppers. Another thing I've noticed is that when you look out the front window, you can see these sleepers and the little brackets that hold the sleepers popping up, but they're popping up really closely to the window. I don't know what the exact distance is, but in my mind this is too close, especially in the winter time. As we can see here, this is really noticeable. I would assume that these have been made with a LOD distance setting, and that just needs to be increased because at the moment it just looks a bit odd. The other thing, if you look down here, and this is a minor detail, but it just jumps at me as a 3D modeler, they didn't bake in any shadows underneath the seats, which is really, I don't know, it's a shame because there's so much attention to detail, and then it just takes away a little bit from that immersion, that there's no shadow underneath the seats. Again, it's a tiny thing because the cabs are actually really nice and have a lot of detail, but things like that really jump out at me. Talking about strange effects, the other thing I've noticed is with the HST there's a strange texture failure. You can see there some black lines. Also the camera seems to do some odd things sometimes. Just watch what happens when this 166 zooms past us. There we go, just snapped onto the train, and there's the texture fault again. Not sure what that's about. So here we are in the class 166. The cab's actually really nice. I really like this. In general, I find the 3D modeling absolutely superb. Now look at this. There's the HST oddity again. It seems that every time we pass a carriage from a certain angle we get this weird texture loading. See these black lines moving? Yeah, not sure. I think Dovetail has been informed, I hope so, and they'll be working on a fix. One of the things I really like about TSW are the motion blur effects. Now I know we've had games in the past that tried to implement it with varying success. But I think all in all, it works really well. If you look at the tracks here, it really reminds me of sitting in a train at the window seat, staring out at the tracks flying by. So yeah, I think that's a really nice touch. However, so if we look at this scene here, you can see the tracks zooming by nice and blurry, but if you look at the wheels of the train, they also seem to have some motion blur effect, and that just looks odd. I don't think that works at all. So one of the biggest differences between Train Sim World and the old Train Simulator is the fact that you can move around freely. I could just stop the train now, open the door, and just walk around and have a look around. So that's great for the player, but as a 3D modeler, that means creating a route is actually a huge amount of work, because every single station and train has to be modeled inside out. I mean, here we are at London Paddington Station, and I mean, just look at that. It looks amazing, I have to say, it really does, and it's beautiful. As a player, you can just walk around. I mean, look at that, you can read the signs. You can see the lights hanging from the ceiling, the animated people. Fair enough, it could be maybe a bit more dirty, I don't know. I've been to Paddington a few times. I don't remember it being that clean, but apart from that, it's actually a really well modeled station, and the amount of work that must have gone into this is just unbelievable. But then again, you see, this is the thing with Train Sim World. Now I can walk up to this train, I can just open the door, go inside, and just walk around freely, just have a look at everything. So that means, I think that door opens automatically. There we go. Pretty busy train actually. So anyway, yeah, so what that means is, because in Train Simulator, essentially, you would model what the player gets to see in great detail, and then create low poly models for things that are not that obvious, saving performance, obviously saving work as well. But that's no longer an option here. Everything has to be modeled down to the smallest detail, really. So the amount of work that is required to create rolling stock or routes in this new simulator is actually significantly higher, and I wonder how that's going to play out with the third-party developers. Are prices going to go up? Are some developers maybe not going to go to the new platform? I do not know. I don't know the answers to that, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I like the feature as a player, but as a 3D modeler, how do I get out of here? Oh, am I trapped now? Anyway, as a 3D modeler, it's a bit mixed emotions, shall we say. Makes me happy, but also I can see a huge amount of work going into these add-ons. One of the things I really like are the physics effects. I mean, just look at that connection between the carriages. Look at the bogies, how they move. You can see hoses rattling and moving. It's just really, really nice, really well done. So one of the things I'm very interested in is how the route is actually created. I have to say, I've never built in UE4, so I don't know what the performance is like, but if we just move away from the tracks, not far at all, we can see that actually there's not a lot of detail at all. So this route was designed in what I call a tunnel scenery design, meaning that there's a lot of detail left and right of the tracks, but then the minute you go a little bit further, actually it fizzles out very quickly. And this works for a route in a flat scenery like this. It's absolutely fine, nothing wrong with that. But if you want to build somewhere else, like the Swiss Alps for example, then this is not going to work. So I don't know whether this was done to save on performance or to save on time. Either way, it'll be interesting to see what future routes will bring and how they are being built. Funnily enough, I had a look around and I've found some old friends. Those of you who've been playing Train Simulator will probably recognize a lot of these buildings. You see there's Reading train station just over there. So we haven't gone far off the track. Detail is not that great actually once you leave the tracks, but you see all these buildings. Yeah, well, we know them, don't we, from TS 2017. One thing I really like is the texturing. Um, it just has a really grubby, dirty feel. You can read all the signs in here, and it just looks stunning. Um, you can walk around here. We can't go into the engine room. We can open the door. Probably not recommended whilst driving, but it's just so immersive, and it all looks so nice. Everything is textured and modeled down to the smallest degree. Really, really nice. So where does that leave us with TSW? Well, I think it is a great platform and a great start. Is it perfect? No, definitely not. But I've been working in the simulator industry for a very long time, and the one thing we all must realize is that the platform that is released is rarely the one we play on in 5, 6 years' time down the line. If you look at something like FSX or P3D out of the box, it's actually a pretty poor software if you think about it. It's only thanks to the community and third-party developers, and often the developers themselves, that produce add-ons and patches that really take the software and turn it from something rather bland and boring into a very special experience. So this really is not the simulator we'll be playing in 5, 6 years. This is the starting point. This is where the journey begins, and I have to say, as a starting point, this is amazing. Once the third-party developers will be let loose on this, I just see huge potential. I don't know whether I'll be working on this. I have worked with Dovetail in the past. We will see. I think it's going to be a huge amount of work developing anything for this platform. So I don't know whether that will scare off some people, because whether people like to hear it or not, this is a niche product and the margins are actually very low. And the other thing, of course, is it's a time-consuming thing, and there are companies out there that do other things as well. How many resources do they want to put into this particular platform, whilst others may bring more money for less work? So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to be following this with great interest, and who knows? I might be able to build a route one day. Who knows? Anyway, I hope this was of interest. And I'll see you in the next video. All the best.